What are some of the other issues that you are campaigning on?
There's many issues that I'll be campaigning on,
Just your
Andrew.
list of highlights,
Yeah,
please.
yeah. No, but in particular, I'm really passionate about education.
Yeah.
I've got 4 children, and they're going through the education system at the moment. And we're seeing huge failures when we see 98% of high school students in decile 1 and 2 schools failing basic reading, writing, and maths tests. When we're seeing year 8 students, 45% of them failing reading and writing tests. I've got a year 8 daughter. She has dyslexia. She wasn't picked up with her dyslexia until she was year 6, till she was 11 years old. And I believe that's because there wasn't regular assessments going on to pick that up. We're not picking up that underperformance at the moment, so we need more regular assessment. And we introduced our education policy for primary and intermediate not so long ago, and we're saying we're going to get back to the basics. We're going to make sure that we've got an hour of reading, writing and maths in classes every day, which you think is quite simple, but as a parent, I'm witnessing firsthand that that's not happening, and I believe that that needs to happen. We need to get back to basics. We need to see more assessment. I sit on the board of trustees at Havelock North Primary, and one of the key focuses that came back in the surveys that we've been doing is around parents not being happy about reporting and assessing the children. And I think that that's really, really important, that we are reporting back so that we can pick up that underperformance, particularly in a lot of the lower decile schools, because these are the most vulnerable children, and we need to make sure that we're getting that right. So education is an area that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah. And obviously your party is big on crime as well, in terms of doing something about it. And recently a lot was made of the crime and police data being released, which showed that crime did go up in the week after the cyclone and then return back to normal. What do you say about those figures and the perception out there that crime has got worse?
Oh, I think it's not a perception. Crime has definitely got worse. We're seeing ram raids every 10 hours. I'm hearing from businesses all the time. Just the other day, a business called and they'd had $20,000 as someone had broken into their business. So retail crime is huge, it's up. And we've got gang crime, the increase in gangs is huge. They're up over 50% now.
So what is that crime that gangs are committing?
The youth offending is, is huge, particularly, in our area. And we need to create safer communities so that our children and grandchildren can grow up in safer communities. I mean, me as a mother of 4 children, I am really, really concerned. And, just before Christmas, my daughter got tracked on a motorbike when she was going to her after-school sport. And that's every mother's worst nightmare, when you're getting a call from police and your daughter's hiding because she's fearing for her life, you know. And I just think that we need to crack down on crime, and it's just not good enough. We need to provide the police with the tools that they need to ensure that we've got safer communities, and it's not happening now, and we need to make sure that we do that. We need to tackle the gang problem. The gangs, it's huge at the moment. I'm getting calls all the time, and people are really, really concerned about the gangs just wandering around, intimidating. Having gang patches in public is one of those main concerns. And under a national government, we would make sure that we get rid of those gang patches in public.
Or ban them.
Ban them.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a bit difficult, don't you think that would be quite difficult to do, though?
Well, you can try, and we will make sure that that is the law. And at the end of the day, if you're not abiding by the law, there'll be consequences, and that's what we'll do.
Is crime still an issue in the devastated areas? Because that a lot of these public meetings, there was quite a bit of anger and that about it. Are you finding that there still are things happening?
Oh, there was huge anger at the time, and there was so much looting and crime happening with vulnerable people who had already lost everything, and yet you had these people, these coming out and looting. It was horrible. They were taking tools out of the sheds, they were smashing windows in cars to see what they could get. It was real. and people were really, really scared. And I think that the government, they ignored it. They didn't acknowledge that this was actually happening on the ground, but it was really, really real for a lot of these people. And I was at a meeting not so long ago in Pakawai, and they were telling lots of stories of looting and just really, really horrible stuff when these guys have been totally devastated. They've lost everything, and they've got people coming into their homes and taking what they can. And you've got a government not recognising it and saying, well, no, you don't need more police presence there because that's not happening. Well, it was happening. It was real, and we need to recognise it and get real.
But there also have been some conspiracy theories and some stories that just aren't true. I've personally followed up on a couple that have been that didn't happen. How, as a candidate, do you sort through that, the sort of truth and the urban myths, really?
Well, I think you're always going to have urban myths, and there's always going to be some that will be taking advantage. But the vast majority of people in the likes of Eskdale, Puketapu, Pakawai and all of those areas, they were really, really scared about the crime. And that was real, and that was not a myth. And so if you go along to the meetings and you listen and you understand, that was a very, very powerful message. And I do not think that they were making that up. And for the government to, make those claims that it wasn't real was wrong. Yeah.
Now, you and your counterpart in Napier, Katie Nimmin, called for the government inquiry into Slash to be widened from Tairāwhiti to include Hawke's Bay. However, the Regional Council released a report which showed that while there was a lot of pine that washed down the rivers, it wasn't Slash. Have you changed your opinion on whether that was still needed to widen that inquiry?
No, I think that at the end of the day, there should have been a ministerial inquiry, and there still should be, into the woody debris and land use management in Hawke's Bay. I mean, no one can argue after seeing all of the woody debris swept up across the beaches, across the orchards, across our land, everywhere. Tūtera, Eskdale, Puketapu, the whole area, it was absolutely devastated. And I still believe that the people of Hawke's Bay need answers. And yes, there was a regional council report done, and I see that, but still if you look into that report, and there's also another independent report that's been done by the forestry industry itself. So there's a mesh of different reports, and these people have gone out and, we don't know how much of the woody debris they've actually counted or what they've done to actually determine and come to those conclusions. But what it has shown is that there was still 50% of pines in that woody debris. And so if you look at that in terms of the pine, well, then you've got to go back and look and say, well, where did that come from? Why did it come down the way it was? Was that the best use for that land? Because at the end of the day, it comes back to land use and what we're doing with our land. And I think it's really, really important that there's better outcomes and better accountability. And we would have got that if the ministerial inquiry had included Hawke's Bay. So for our local MPs who should be representing Hawke's Bay, they should have made an absolute focus on Hawke's Bay, and that didn't happen. Yeah. And so what we've got now is a mishmash of different reports coming out that we don't know whether they're independent or not independent or what they are. And so that's not giving the answers that people deserve.